Hey everybody, Smooth T here. This is going to be a video about new atheism, a term which I find really hilarious because it demonstrates more than anything else the ignorance of the people who identify with this movement, that they actually think that atheists behaving intolerant of the of viewpoints they disagree with and behaving intolerant of religion is something new. That Richard Dawkins invented that, you know. Like I guess there was never a guy named Joseph Stalin, right? I guess there was never. I guess Chairman Mao Zedong never said like religion is poison and it's the cause of all the ills in society and yada yada yada. I guess Karl Marx never existed. You know, no, new atheism, you know. Really cracks me up. Anyway, that's what my topic is going to be today. And what inspired this video is a little near miss I had with drama, because another YouTuber who I watch pretty regularly, and I'm not going to say who he is because I think what he's doing is shameless attention whoring, and I'm not going to encourage it. But this person made a video in which they mentioned Sam Harris, and I left some comments on that video basically saying that I don't like Sam Harris, and we started to debate and we started to go back and forth, but then he stopped responding. And then another person came to one of my videos that had nothing to do with any of this, and annoyingly left some comments like, hey, you know, you should challenge this guy to a debate. He just stopped replying to you. You're going to take that? You're going to take that? And by the way, the most pathetic thing about drama on the internet, now you would think the most pathetic thing would be the people who participate in it, but it's not. It's the toadies. It's these toadies that try to instigate this shit so that they can, you know, bait people into it and then sit back with a bucket of popcorn laughing while they watch the sparks fly. You know, and what cracks me up the most is like, if you want to see a debate happen, what's stopping you from doing it yourself? What's handicapping you? Why do I have to be your champion, knight in shining armor that fights this battle for you? I mean, if you want to debate the guy, you debate the guy. Don't try to don't try to fucking bait me into debating the guy. Like, hey, you gonna take that from him? You gonna take that from him? Fuck it. You know, what ended up happening is the dude who will remain nameless found out about that attempt to bait me into a debate, and he made a video challenging me like, oh, I'm on a higher level than you, and I'm gonna trample you, and I'm the biggest, toughest guy on the block, son. You can't step to this. And you know, I would like to explain real quickly why I don't do that shit anymore. For those of you who wonder, because I don't think this guy I'm talking about knows my history on YouTube, but he probably doesn't know that I used to make a lot of videos like that, and that's when I had a much bigger audience than I do now. I think my audience is like 1/10 the size that it was when I made drama videos, because that's what everybody wants to see, is stupid people acting immature and fucking trying to one up and disgrace one another. Let me tell you guys why I don't make videos like that anymore. Because it's not like I'm not tempted. I mean, if you read my comments, I'm still very much, you know, I'm still a catty, snarky person, just like I used to be. I haven't lost the gift of formulating creative insults. But the reason that I don't do this is that I found that the more attention I got on YouTube, and the more my fame began to grow, the less I enjoyed making videos, and the more I began to forget why I got into doing this in the first place, which was to have a sounding board for my ideas and the things that interest me. It's supposed to be me-tube. not everybody else tube. Right? Which is what it becomes when you pander for attention. You know, the more you try to impress everybody by winning these pissing contests and being the baddest motherfucker on the block, the more you build a cage for yourself. And then every time you want to talk about something that interests you, well, you got to think, oh, am I going to offend this demographic over here? Is this going to please that demographic over there? And what if these guys say this, and what if this guy says that? And pretty soon you're censoring yourself, and you're just dancing like a puppet on the strings for the audience. You're not really adding anything unique to the discourse. And I'm not going to name any names, but I've seen a couple of my former friends go down that path to an even greater extent than I did, and I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. And you know, the person that I'm referring to apparently is pretty miserable in his life, and like blogs about how depressed he is and how sad he is, and probably never occurs to him to ask why. Well, the reason why is because you've had to kill everything that makes you who you are. You've had to subjugate your personality to the will of the masses, just like a politician does. And that's the reason why politicians are always stressed out and like suicidally fucking on edge all the time. I remember an anecdote about how Adolf Hitler used to have panic attacks because he was so concerned about how the German public viewed him, and like, oh, am I still at the top of the game, and are they starting to question my authority? Well, look, you know, what ended up happening to me was a blessing in disguise. I was publicly disgraced by an incident in which I got pissed drunk at a fundraiser on Blog TV and waved a gun around and started ranting about weird shit like George Orwell and people who shop at the Gap and stuff that to this day I can't explain, because who knows where things come from in your subconscious when you're drunk. But it lowered everybody's opinion of me, and what I found, you know, surprisingly after that incident, is that when I came back to YouTube and started making videos again, it was like 2006 again. I was actually enjoying myself making videos in a way that I'd forgotten. Like because my reputation had gotten trashed, because I had become this social pariah, suddenly I was free to talk about things that I want to talk about, instead of just dancing like a puppet on the string for the entertainment of the masses that just want to see a good fight and hear a witty retort and a soundbite of two idiots going back and forth and fucking arguing with each other. And the point is, I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to box myself in a cage again. I like talking about shit that interests me. But, that having been said, even though I declined this debate challenge this guy gave me, and we're not going to step into the squared circle and find out who's on a higher level than the other person or whatever the fuck, I will make a video about secular humanism, another one, because most of my old videos on that topic are gone now that YouTube banned my last account. And I'm going to do that by reading some comments that I left on a video called Christopher Hitchens, the Best of the Hitch Slap. And I go to secular humanist videos like this sometimes in order to troll people, but what I'm not really doing is trolling. I'm trying to enlighten them and raise consciousness a little bit. Hopefully snap some people out of the mob hypnosis that they're in. You know, and I do the same thing to the religious. Sometimes I'll go to the right-wing Christian right videos and I'll leave some comments on that. You know, I like to try to shake people out of their complacency, and I think, I hope that once in a while it actually works. I like to think so. Anyway, but this video, Christopher Hitchens, Best of the Hitch Slap, that shit cracks me up. Hitch slap, really guys, hitch slap? It's like, this video is like a temple where the secular humanists come to give their paeans to this guy's discourtesy towards people that he argued with. Like, oh, our hero is a guy who has very witty insults and makes people feel bad about themselves. Oh, rah rah, you know, and it's so fucking stupid. But this is the comment that I left first, and the reason I'm going to read these is I think it's going to do a very good job of illustrating my position when it comes to secular humanism. I said, look at all the dogmatic secular humanists venerating St. Hitchens in this comment section, all blithely unaware of the irony that a man who preaches hatred and intolerance, not to mention neoliberal military adventurism, is no different from the most bigoted, hellfire-screaming fundamentalist preacher or imam. True lovers of liberty do not try to suppress ideas, no matter how heinous those ideas might be. I'm an atheist, by the way, not that it's relevant. And it wasn't very long, as you can imagine, before I got a reply to that comment. And here's what the reply is. This anonymous person said, "You said that true lovers of liberty do not try to suppress ideas, no matter how heinous those ideas might be. At his trial, the Nazi war criminal / murdering / torturing bastard / one of the most evil cunts who ever took a breath / so-called angel of death, Joseph Mengele, might have said the very same thing in his defense. Besides being an atheist, are you also a clown?" And my reply back was, "Did you seriously just compare me to Joseph Mengele? Laugh my fucking ass off. Considering that Mengele was a man of science and a secularist who hated the Abrahamic religions just as much as you do, shouldn't you admire him? By the way, if you want to talk about torture, why don't you talk to your boy Sam Harris about that? Because he wrote an article for the Huffington Post endorsing its use in the war on terror." Well, then that guy said, "You're a fucking idiot," and stopped arguing, which I always, you know, when people, you know, throw out those little 2-year-old insults, then I kind of take that as victory. When I can make somebody regress to the level of childhood, I think that's a win. Well, then another person responded to my first comment on the video, and they said, "Hatred and intolerance of people is a very bad thing, but hatred and intolerance of ideas, which is what Hitchens was referring to, is something entirely different. Granted, I don't know if hatred is ever a healthy thing, but intolerance of bad ideas is vital for scientific, moral, and societal progress. Further, Hitchens has never advocated suppression of ideas, and I challenge you to prove me wrong. If you know anything about him and his system of values, you'd know that is an absolutely absurd claim." Okay. I don't know why I suddenly became illiterate for a second there. Well, my reply back was, "Intolerance of bad ideas is vital for scientific progress? What kind of secular humanist bumper sticker motto is that? Science has nothing to do with unfalsifiable claims." Hitch was an avowed Marxist who spoke often of banishing all religions from the discourse. His words. Given the history of violent religious persecution under communist regimes, I hardly think that it's a great leap of intuition to assume that Hitch was in favor of religious persecution, whether he explicitly stated it or not. And then that same person replied back again. And he said, "I'm not sure what your objection is to the sentence that you quoted. If you know anything about how science operates, then you know that the peer review process is merciless. If you can't back up your claims, you're simply not getting published, and your research won't get recognized. That's how it must work. and how I believe all truth claims should be treated. If Hitchens was anything, he was an anti-totalitarian. If you wouldn't agree with that, you have misunderstood him profoundly. Read his books. In other words, buy his Kool-Aid. And I responded back. And I said, it's fine to evaluate truth claims with skepticism and the objectivity of a scientist. If I didn't think so, I wouldn't be an atheist myself. But what isn't okay is forcing your beliefs on others, or attempting to banish someone from the discourse. That is the very essence of totalitarianism. And then the person replied back again. And he said, the reason that religious dogmatists don't deserve our attention in any intelligent discussion is the blatant irrationality of their discourse. It is perfectly rational to dismiss such views. By analogy, an astrologer submitting his research to a cosmology conference would likely be rejected. Nothing wrong with that. You keep claiming, implying that Hitchens would be okay with limiting free speech for religious people. Watch the following, and it should put your concerns to rest. And he gives me a link to a YouTube video where Hitchens is speaking and giving a lecture about free speech, and I'll get to that in a minute. So hold that thought about Hitchens and free speech, because I replied back to his comment, and this is what I said. I said, if an astrologer submits research, we should give it the same consideration as anyone else's research. If it's found to be factually inaccurate, then it should be rejected. But rejecting ideas preemptively is anathema to the entire concept of free inquiry. Carl Sagan made this point quite eloquently when he condemned the scientific community's attempts to block publication of Immanuel Velikovsky's theories. And Sagan was in the right. Where would we be if Einstein's theories had been ignored? The truth can stand well enough on its own 2 feet. It doesn't need to be defended. Science does not need dogmatic secular humanists running around defending the faith and behaving like Soviet commissars, banishing people and ideas from the discourse. The marketplace of ideas needs to be a free and open market, or else progress and innovation are impossible. Now, that's where that little back and forth ended, at least for now. And this is recent stuff. I'm sure the guy's going to reply back. But I want to talk about Christopher Hitchens and his commitment to free speech. Because the video that the guy linked me to was a 20-minute long dissertation on free speech by Christopher Hitchens. And I'm going to make something clear. I don't hate Christopher Hitchens. I don't even hate Sam Harris, although I do think rather poorly of him since he endorses the use of torture. Christopher Hitchens, on the other hand, is someone I actually admired quite a bit. He was willing to let himself be waterboarded to protest the use of torture. And I find that admirable in the extreme. Obviously, his secular humanism is not one of the things about him that I admired. But, Christopher Hitchens made some of the most eloquent, powerful, and persuasive arguments in favor of free speech that I've ever heard. And, contrary to a lot of people's opinion of me, I have done a lot of reading in my life. But I think that Hitchens' pronouncements about free speech are some of the best that you'll find anywhere. Yet, with that in mind, some of the best and most eloquent pronouncements on the topic of liberty that I've ever heard came from Thomas Jefferson, who was a slave owner. And the lesson to be learned here is that there's something in human nature called hypocrisy, and it's a bitch. What somebody says doesn't necessarily always correspond to how they behave. You can talk a great game about liberty, but if you own slaves, in an era I hate the argument where it's like, oh, back in the day everybody owned slaves. No, they didn't. The richest 1% fucking owned slaves. The average white person was a slave. So don't make excuses for that guy that way. Say, oh, he was a man of his time. He was making the lemonade out of lemons and doing the best he could do. Fuck that. He knew better. He knew better, and he did it anyway. And that's unforgivable in the eyes of history, in my eyes anyway. So while Christopher Hitchens might have talked a great game about free speech, I think that his secular humanism, or his Marxism, because he actually called himself a Marxist, most secular humanists lack that insight and self-awareness to realize that the new atheism isn't actually new at all. It's something that's been around for quite a while. I think that his secular humanism is entirely incompatible and anathema and mutually exclusive with the concept of free speech and his commitment to free speech. And you can see that clearly in his statement that religion needs to be banished from the discourse. We need to banish these people from the discourse. A person with a true commitment to free speech does not speak of banishing people from the discourse. How can anyone not see the contradiction in that? Okay, and like I said to this guy in the comments section of that video, the truth does not need to be defended against falsehoods. Okay? You don't need to defend the truth by tilting at windmills and going out and trying to destroy every false claim that's ever been made. Because a person with critical thinking skills, a rational person, will recognize the truth from among the bullshit. And a person who lacks that ability for critical thinking and free thought is never going to recognize the truth, even if you force feed it to them. And you see this so apparently in a lot of these secular humanists who talk so much about evolution, yet they don't understand evolutionary theory. And they've got a copy of the God delusion, but they've never taken a fucking biology class. And they'll name drop scientists like a aspiring actress at a cocktail party, name dropping actors to impress people, but they don't really understand the science. They don't understand critical thinking. They've just gone from drinking the religion Kool-Aid to drinking the science Kool-Aid. But they're still not thinking for themselves. They're still not exercising critical thinking skills, and they're still not exercising free thought. And the reason why I've been such a vocal critic of secular humanism and quote-unquote new atheism, and the reason that I continue to harp on this year after year, even though the atheist community and I have parted ways a long time ago, which, and let me reiterate, still don't believe in God. Still don't believe in God, guys. The reason I continue to harp on this is I don't think that the average person on the street who in America is a religious person, because as embarrassing as it is, this is a country where a shockingly high percentage of adults believe in angels, and that's their right. That's their fucking right to believe in angels, and fuck you, Sam Harris or Daniel Dennett or anybody, for thinking that you have the right to take that away from somebody. But I don't think the average person on the street understands what a danger secular humanism really is. I don't think they can tell the difference between an atheist like me and an atheist like Sam Harris, who talks about torturing people for the war on terror. I don't think they can tell the difference between an atheist like me and an atheist like Christopher Hitchens, who talks about banishing people from the discourse as if he's a Soviet commissar. Okay? And this is a very dangerous ideology, because I know where this road leads, and anybody who's studied history knows where it leads. It leads to the gulags, it leads to the secret police, it leads to psychology being used as a tool to treat the religious like it's a mental disorder. And you know, you could still see this in like communist, quote-unquote, communist China, which has all the bad parts of communism now and none of the good parts. You know, you can see this where the government is trying to suppress the Falun Dafa cult, and you know, religious persecution is always a problem where secular humanism, aka Marxism, gets involved, and that's why, as long as these new atheist people are on YouTube making videos and on front lines, fighting tooth and nail against that shit. Not that I'm saying ban the God delusion. Not that I'm saying ban Christopher Hitchens. I'm certainly not saying that, because like I said, the marketplace of ideas needs to be a free and open market. But I will be there calling a spade, calling these people authoritarian communists, because that's what the fuck they are, and pointing out that no matter how good of a game they talk about free speech, they don't really believe in it if they want to banish people from the discourse. So this has been The Smooth Terrorist. If you enjoyed this video, then download it, re-upload it, mirror it, parody it, make it your own. Because the commies at Google cannot censor me unless you let them. Keep it smooth.